She was humiliated in front of her ex, but instead of breaking, she turned to the one man no one dared to ask for help.
I cannot believe you would say that to me.
CEO. What started as a desperate act
true.
soon became something no one saw coming. Because somewhere between the lie and the truth, feelings began to change. The ballroom shimmered with golden light. Every chandelier sparkled like frozen stars above a sea of silk gowns and sharp suits. Music floated through the air, soft and elegant, yet her heart raced louder than the violins. Elena stood near the grand staircase, her trembling hands gripping the folds of her pale blue dress. She felt the weight of every gaze, every whisper that sliced through the air like invisible knives. Across the room, her ex, Daniel, was laughing, his arm around a woman whose confidence gleamed like diamonds. He caught Elena's eyes and smiled. That same smile that once made her believe she mattered. Her throat tightened. Her pride wanted her to walk away. But her desperation held her still. She turned toward the man beside her, Adrian Voss, the billionaire CEO everyone whispered about. Tall, cold, untouchable. He had agreed to meet her for business, not for this chaos. Yet now, with Daniel watching, Elena stepped closer to Adrian, her voice shaking. Act like you love me, please. Her words were barely a breath, but they cracked through the tension like thunder. Adrian's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening as if measuring the weight of her request. Every camera phone, every glance, every heart in that ballroom turned toward them. Elena felt her pulse hammering against her ribs. The scent of cologne, roses, and champagne mixed into something dizzying. Her ex was still staring. She felt humiliation burning her cheeks. Adrian leaned closer, his voice deep, almost dangerous. You want them to believe I love you? She nodded, unable to meet his gaze. He exhaled slowly, then took her hand, firm, deliberate, unhesitating. The touch sent electricity rushing through her veins. The crowd seemed to hold its breath. Adrian pulled her closer until she could feel his heartbeat through his suit. He looked down at her, his expression unreadable, then whispered, Fine, but understand, once I begin, there is no pretending halfway. Elena's lips parted in confusion, fear, and something else she could not name. He turned his head slightly, his gaze sweeping the onlookers, Daniel included. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, Adrian placed his hand on her waist, his voice calm, yet commanding. Smile, he said. She tried. Her smile trembled, but Adrian's composure never faltered. Every move, every word, every glance became a performance that felt too real. The room began to blur. Elena could feel Daniel's jealousy like a storm brewing behind her. Adrian leaned closer, his breath warm near her ear. This is what you wanted, he said quietly. Her heart stuttered. Yes, she whispered. But as he looked into her eyes, something shifted, something she did not expect. It was no longer an act, and that terrified her more than the humiliation she was trying to escape. Elena's breath caught as Adrian's gaze deepened. His hand lingered on her waist, steady and certain, while her world swayed like a candle flame in a storm. The orchestra played a slow waltz. People began to move again, couples swirling under the golden lights. Yet every step she took felt like a secret exposed. Adrian guided her onto the dance floor. His grip was firm, his movements effortless. It was as if he had done this 1,000 times, commanding the space, controlling every eye that dared to look. Elena tried to keep up, her heels trembling against the marble floor. Her heart beat fast, not from the music but from the closeness, the warmth of his hand pressed against her back. Keep your head up, he murmured. Let them see you are proud, not desperate. His words stung, but they also gave her something solid to hold on to. She lifted her chin. For a moment, she forgot the whispers, the stares, the past. Her ex stood frozen near the edge of the room, his smile gone, his eyes dark with confusion. Adrian turned slightly so Daniel would have a clear view of them. Then, with calm precision, he traced a small circle on Elena's waist, just enough to make the crowd wonder if the rumors were true. Her skin burned under his touch. You are trembling, he said. She tried to speak, but her voice refused to obey. Adrian's eyes softened just enough for her to see something human behind steel. You wanted him to see what he lost, he said quietly. Elena met his gaze, her own eyes glistening. I wanted him to regret it, she whispered. Adrian tilted his head slightly. Then he will. He moved closer, closing the remaining space between them. Every camera in the room clicked like tiny bursts of lightning. Every whisper turned into a wave of speculation. Elena's breath brushed against his collar. The world felt too bright, too loud, too fast. Then, suddenly, everything stilled. Adrian stopped dancing. He looked at her with an expression she could not read. Half irritation, half intrigue. You are shaking as if I am the one who hurt you, he said. You are not, she replied, her voice steady now. But you are the only one who can help me stand. Something flickered in his eyes, something dangerous and unspoken. He exhaled slowly, the sound barely audible. Then stand, he said. His tone was not gentle, but it gave her strength. Elena straightened her back, her eyes locking on Daniel. For the first time in months, Daniel looked unsure. He whispered something to the woman beside him, but she turned away, unimpressed. Adrian leaned closer again, his hand never leaving Elena's waist. Now he sees, he murmured. You wanted to win. You have. Elena looked up at him. Then why does it not feel like victory? Adrian said nothing. The music faded into applause as the song ended. People clapped politely, unaware of the storm brewing between the two of them. Adrian released her hand, but his eyes stayed fixed on her face. Her pulse refused to calm. Every nerve in her body still buzzed from his touch, from the heat of his voice, from the illusion they had created together. Daniel approached, his confidence fractured. Elena, he said, his voice smooth but strained. You never mentioned him. Elena forced a small smile. You never asked. Adrian stood still beside her, his presence like a wall of quiet power. Daniel's gaze flicked between them. So this is serious? Adrian's lips curved slightly. Does it matter to you? Daniel's jaw tightened. Adrian reached for a glass of champagne from a passing waiter, handed it to Elena, then turned his attention back to Daniel. She deserves someone who sees her worth before the world does, he said. His words landed heavy. Daniel's smile faltered completely. The woman beside him touched his arm, but he brushed her hand away. The tension hung like smoke. Elena's heart raced again, but now for a different reason. She glanced up at Adrian. His tone had been controlled, but his eyes told another story. There was no performance in that moment. It was real, raw, and frightening. He turned to her. Do you want to leave? Yes, she whispered. He nodded once and guided her toward the exit. The air outside was cool, brushing against her flushed cheeks. The night sky shimmered with city lights, their reflections dancing on the windows of black cars parked along the street. Adrian opened the car door for her. She hesitated. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For saving me from humiliation. He studied her for a long moment. You saved yourself. I just played along. She looked down. You did not have to. I did not, he said. But I was curious. Her eyes lifted to meet his. Curious about what? Why someone like you would beg in front of everyone? Her breath hitched. She thought of the unpaid rent, her mother's medicine, the job she lost after Daniel's betrayal. She thought of every door that closed in her face because she was not rich enough, not connected enough, not enough. I was tired of being invisible, she said quietly. Adrian's expression softened just slightly. You are far from invisible now. She gave a faint laugh. Yes, thanks to you. Do not thank me yet, he said. There was a pause, the kind that felt like a question waiting for an answer. Tomorrow, he continued, people will talk. They will say you are mine. That story will spread faster than truth. Elena frowned. I can handle gossip. Adrian's gaze darkened. This is not gossip. This is power. Once they believe it, you live under it. She felt a chill crawl up her spine. Then what do we do? She asked. Adrian took a step closer, his voice low and deliberate. We make it true. Elena's heart stopped. He did not smile. He did not blink. The streetlight caught the sharp edge of his jaw, the calm certainty in his tone. You wanted him to see what he lost, Adrian said. Now he will see what you become. She shook her head, her mind spinning. You're talking about a deal? He nodded. A partnership. You need protection. I need someone the world believes I care for. Her pulse quickened. Why would you need that? His lips curved slightly. Because love is the one thing even money cannot buy, yet it opens every door. She stared at him, unsure if he was mocking her or confessing something real. The air between them grew heavier, charged with something she could not name. Think carefully, Elena, he said. Once you step into my world, you do not step out the same. Her chest tightened. And if I say no? He stepped back, his expression unreadable. Then tonight never happened. She looked back toward the ballroom, the golden lights, the laughter, the people who would talk no matter what she chose. Her past stood inside those walls. Her future stood in front of her. Elena took a slow breath. Her heart still ached, but something inside her had changed. She straightened her shoulders and met his gaze. Then I will take the risk. Adrian's eyes softened for the first time that night. Good, he said, because the act begins now. He opened the car door again, and this time she stepped in. As the door closed, the city lights blurred behind the tinted glass. The engine hummed, smooth and powerful. Elena looked at her reflection in the window, different, stronger, no longer begging. The man beside her glanced at his phone, his face calm, unreadable. But as he spoke to his driver, his tone carried something that made her chest tighten. Drive, Adrian said quietly, and make sure no one follows. Her fingers curled in her lap. Something told her that the deal she just made was far more than a simple act. It was the beginning of something she did not yet understand. Something dangerous, and maybe something real. The city lights flickered across the tinted glass as the car moved through the night. Elena sat in silence, her hands resting in her lap, her thoughts tangled between fear and wonder. The hum of the engine was steady, yet her heartbeat was not. She could feel the weight of Adrian's presence beside her, calm, composed, unreadable. He was looking out the window, his sharp profile bathed in the glow of passing streetlights. Every now and then, his eyes flickered toward her reflection. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. The silence was not empty. It was alive, thick with things neither of them dared to say. Finally, Adrian broke it. You accepted the risk very easily. Elena turned her head slightly. Maybe because I have nothing left to lose. He looked at her then, his eyes steady and probing. People always have something to lose. They just forget what it is until it is gone. She met his gaze. And what about you? What would you lose if this act fails? Adrian leaned back against the leather seat, his expression unreadable. My name, my company, my control. There was no arrogance in his tone, just fact, spoken with quiet certainty. Elena studied him, realizing for the first time that even power came with its own kind of fear. She turned her eyes toward the window again. Then we both have something to protect. He nodded slightly. Then we understand each other. The car stopped in front of a tall glass tower that shimmered like a blade cutting through the night sky. Where are we? She asked softly. My building, Adrian replied. You will stay here until the press loses interest. Elena hesitated. Stay here? With you. He opened the door. You asked me to act like I love you. The world is watching now. If you walk away tonight, everything we built collapses. She stepped out of the car slowly, the cool air brushing against her skin. The marble steps gleamed under her heels as she followed him inside. The lobby was silent. Sleek black floors, soft lighting, a scent of cedar and luxury. She felt out of place among the polished walls and cold perfection. Adrian's footsteps echoed ahead of her. He turned slightly. You look like you are walking into a lion's den. Am I? She asked quietly. A faint smile touched his lips. That depends on whether you plan to run or stay. She exhaled. I said I would take the risk. He nodded. Then come. They entered the private elevator. The doors closed with a whisper, and the space filled with a tense silence again. She could hear the faint hum of machinery, the quiet rhythm of his breathing. The elevator climbed smoothly. Her reflection in the mirrored walls looked pale, uncertain, but there was also something new, resolve. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, then slipped it back into his pocket. "Press already?" she asked. "They never sleep," he replied. "By morning, every headline will have our names together." Her chest tightened. "And you are fine with that?" He looked down at her. "I do not mind pretending, as long as you do not forget that it is a performance." She hesitated. "And if it starts to feel real?" His eyes met hers, sharp, searching, almost warning. "Then it becomes dangerous." The elevator stopped with a soft chime. The doors opened to a penthouse bathed in silver moonlight. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the entire skyline. The air smelled of leather, coffee, and quiet power. Elena stepped inside slowly. Everything around her gleamed. Marble counters, glass shelves, soft gray furniture that looked untouched. "This place feels like no one lives here," she murmured. Adrian set his jacket on the arm of the sofa. "That is because I'm usually at work." She looked around again. "You work even at night?" "I build things that do not exist," he said simply. "That requires time." Elena smiled faintly. "And what about living? Does that require time too?" He paused before answering. "I would not know." For a moment, silence wrapped around them again. Not cold, but strangely fragile. Adrian poured himself a glass of water and handed one to her. She accepted it, her fingers brushing his. The touch was brief, but her pulse quickened. "Thank you," she said softly. He nodded. "You can use the guest room down the hall. There are clothes prepared for you. My assistant arranged it." Elena blinked. "You planned this?" He looked amused. "I plan everything." She looked down at the glass in her hands, the water trembling slightly. "And what if I do something you did not plan?" she asked. Adrian's eyes met hers again, the corners of his mouth curving faintly. "Then I will adapt." Her heart gave a small, uncertain flutter. She turned toward the window, looking out at the glittering city. "I used to dream of living like this," she whispered. "High above everything, untouchable." "And now?" he asked. "Now it feels lonely." Adrian walked closer, his reflection appearing beside hers in the glass. "It is," he said quietly, "but it is safe." She turned slightly to face him. Safe is not always enough. Their eyes met again, hers filled with uncertainty, his with something that almost looked like understanding. For the first time, his tone softened. "You surprise me, Elena." "How so?" "You asked me to act, yet you're the one making it feel real." Her breath caught. "Maybe that is what makes a good performance." "Or a dangerous one," he replied. A faint smile touched her lips. "You are afraid it might affect you?" Adrian studied her face for a long moment. "Fear is not something I waste time on." "Then what do you waste time on?" He looked away, his jaw tightening slightly. "On people who make me remember things I should forget." The answer was quiet, but it carried weight. Elena felt the air change between them, gentler, deeper. For a second, she wanted to ask what he meant, but something in his expression told her not to. She took a step back. "I will go rest now." He nodded. "Good night, Elena." "Good night, Adrian." She turned toward the hallway, her steps light, but her mind restless. The guest room was beautiful, soft white sheets, pale curtains, and a faint scent of fresh flowers. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the city lights outside the window. It all felt unreal. This morning, she was invisible. Tonight, the world believed she belonged to a man who could buy entire empires. Her fingers traced the edge of the blanket as thoughts swirled through her mind. Was this truly just an act? If so, why did her heart react every time he looked at her? Why did his words echo long after he stopped speaking? In another part of the apartment, Adrian stood near the window, staring at the same city she watched. His phone buzzed again. A message flashed on the screen. "The press has already picked up the story. Public is believing it. Proceed carefully." He locked the phone and exhaled. Carefully. That was not how he usually lived. But something about Elena made everything unpredictable. Her courage, her broken pride, her refusal to hide even when she was afraid. He had met many people who wanted his power. She was the first who wanted his help, not his name. And that unsettled him more than he cared to admit. He turned off the lights and stood in the dim glow of the city. For the first time in years, Adrian Voss, the man who controlled everything, felt uncertain. Days passed, headlines filled with their names. Every photograph, every news article painted them as the perfect couple, the powerful CEO and the woman who had captured his heart. But behind the elegant smiles and choreographed appearances, the line between truth and performance had begun to blur. Elena started noticing the smallest things. The way Adrian would look for her when she entered a room. The way his hand would hover near hers. Not for the cameras, not for show, but as if he simply wanted her close. The act was supposed to protect her. Now it protected something else, something neither of them dared to name. One evening, as the city melted into twilight, Adrian called her to the rooftop garden of his building. The air was cool, scented with jasmine and rain. Lights from the skyline flickered like stars below their feet. He stood by the railing, his sleeves rolled up, his tie loosened. When he turned, there was no trace of the cold businessman she first met. "Elena," he said quietly, "the story is ending." She froze. "Ending? The press will move on. The headlines will fade. You are free to go back to your life." Her chest tightened, though she had known this moment would come. "Is that what you want?" she asked. He hesitated. "It is what makes sense." She looked away, her voice softer now. "Sometimes the heart does not follow what makes sense." He stepped closer, his tone low but steady. "You were never supposed to stay. You walked into my world as part of a deal. Yet somehow, you changed it." Elena's eyes met his. "Then why do you sound like you were sending me away?" "Because I'm trying to protect you," he said. "From me. From the noise, the pressure, the stories that never end." Her lips trembled, but she smiled faintly. "Maybe you are not the one who needs to protect me anymore." The city wind brushed between them, carrying the faint hum of distant traffic and music from the streets below. He looked down, exhaling slowly. "Do you regret asking me that night? To act like I loved you?" She shook her head. "No, because somewhere between pretending and surviving, I learned what love is supposed to feel like." Adrian's eyes softened, the mask finally slipping away. He reached out, his hand brushing against hers. "And what does it feel like?" he asked. "It feels like this," she whispered. "Scary, unexpected, real." For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was no longer heavy, it was honest. Adrian's hand closed around hers, warm and steady. "No more pretending," he said quietly. "No more pretending," she echoed. The lights of the city shimmered around them, as if the world itself paused to listen. In that moment, it did not matter who was rich, who was poor, who had power or pride. It was just two people who had lost themselves in an act and, somehow, found truth instead. The rumors, the headlines, the whispers, they would fade. But what began as a desperate plea had become something unplanned, something unbreakable. Adrian lifted her hand gently, his voice low. "Love may not be something money can buy," he said, "but it is something worth risking everything for." Elena smiled, not the nervous, uncertain smile of the past, but one filled with quiet peace. The city wind moved through her hair, the lights dancing in her eyes. As they stood together beneath the open sky, she knew the story that began with a plea had found its own truth, not in pretending, not in fear, but in choice. The act was over. The love was real, and that was enough.